All those years of bitterness rushed forward, but so did tenderness, a longing that was slowly becoming unbearable. She bit back a sob, shook her head fiercely, but it was a battle against the tide of feelings that would not be contained. "You don't get to twist this around, Othello," she choked, stepping back until the rough texture of the trunk pressed against her back. "It's not just about us anymore. It's about what you did. It's about choices." "Choices," he repeated softly, stepping closer still until the heat of his body brushed against hers. "Yeah, but what about the choice to still feel?" In that charged moment, Chloe could feel everything: the hurt, the anger, the remnants of unspoken love pouring out like rain on parched ground. And despite the fear threatening her, her heart yearned to confess the truth, that he was still everything. But how could she voice that against the looming shadows of the past? Caught between rebellion and reckoning, she whispered, "Maybe it's easier to just run." "Is it?" he challenged, and in those 4 words, the fierce tenderness of a possibility lingered, beckoning them both to dare a new start amidst the echoes of their shared past. Scene 11. Friendship versus new love. Outside the large, imposing warehouse where tensions simmered, the balmy evening air wrapped around Othello like a comforting veil, momentarily shielding him from the chaos boiling within. He leaned against the rusted metal rail, letting the metallic tang of the nearby dumpster blend with the sweeter scent of jasmine from a garden, fighting to thrive in the surrounding shadows. With each careful breath, he tasted the bittersweet flavor of nostalgia memories of simpler times, yet tangled in a web of guilt. Chloe stood a few feet away, lifting a dusty tarp with a motion that revealed her frustration. She brushed her curls behind her ear, the tension radiating from her in visible waves. Othello found himself caught in the pull of her shimmering presence, a tether to emotions that were both intoxicating and suffocating. The way she pressed her lips into a thin line suggested ironclad resolve, yet her wide, expressive eyes betrayed the storm brewing inside. "Why is it that we always find ourselves in the middle of this?" Chloe asked, her voice slicing through the silence like a knife. She aimed her gaze at a crateful of unlabeled boxes scattered across the concrete floor, as if searching for answers hidden within their depths. Othello clenched his jaw, not just in response to her question, but to the dissonance in his heart. "Maybe because we were always meant to be here," he replied, trying to inject levity into the heaviness of the moment. "Just us fighting the world." Chloe snorted, the sound surprisingly bright amidst the gloom. "Oh, please. If it weren't for our hapless friends causing ruckus, we'd be sipping cocktails and laughing instead of, I don't know, evading bullets." She threw her hands up in an exaggerated flourish, the tension ebbing just slightly as she attempted to navigate the absurdity of their situation. Just then, the sound of muffled laughter erupted from just beyond the warehouse's makeshift barricade, where Lucien, Othello's longtime friend, regaled a group with stories of their childhood escapades. The warmth in his voice held a sense of security, yet Othello's heart tightened, the laughter underscoring his divided loyalties. Here was his past, built on camaraderie, shared secrets, and dreams of youth. The brotherhood they had forged was sacred, yet Chloe, with her fierce determination and defiant spirit, threatened to penetrate the exterior he had wrapped around himself for so long. "Can you hear them?" Othello murmured, a heavy pause festering between them as he let the words linger. "What if this goes south? What if Lucien needs—" Chloe stepped closer, the intensity of her gaze holding him captive. "What if? Othello, there's no what if that guarantees anything. This isn't about them anymore. It's about us." Her voice dropped to a near whisper, the urgency in her tone seeping under his skin. "I've fought too hard to let you push me away." Othello turned his body slightly, enough to avoid the sharpness of her honesty, yet still intrigued by the proximity. "You don't understand the whole situation, my choices, my past." "I don't care about your past," she exploded, surprising even herself. Took a deep breath. "I care about you, Othello, but you keep putting up walls I can't climb." A muscle in his neck twitched, admiration and frustration warring within him. "This isn't about climbing walls, Chloe. It's about burning bridges." She tilted her head, her expressive features softening momentarily but edged with determination. "If that's the case, maybe we should light a fire together. Either we let it burn or we tend it." Othello's heart raced, the air thickening around them as unspoken feelings surged like wildfire. Chloe licked her lips, the movement igniting a flicker of desire he had long buried beneath layers of fear and regret. It was an invitation he could no longer ignore. Before he could respond, Lucian's laughter rang out once more, wrapping around them like an intrusive thread. Othello turned back towards the noise, pushing the weight of unuttered words deeper into his chest. Here stood both his past and potential future separate but intertwined, needing delicate handling. How could he choose? "Lucian knows me, Chloe," he murmured, glancing back at her. "But you could change everything." Chloe stepped even closer, their breaths mingling, an unbreakable tension sparking around them. "Things need to change if we're going to survive this," she stated softly, her gaze unwavering. "So let's begin." The world around them faded as the blistering weight of friendship and new love crashed together, bold and undefined, a clash of emotions ripe for the taking. Scene 12. Allies in Jealousy. The moon hung high over the city, its soft glow casting long shadows on the vibrant streets of East Point. In a bustling cafe, the air thick with the rich aroma of roasted coffee and teasing notes of cinnamon, Chloe Carver leaned across the table, eyes sharp and glimmering. "Are you really telling me that you want to help me win his heart? After everything?" Chloe challenged, her tone both skeptical and tantalizing. "Why wouldn't I? Othello's a catch smart, successful, and let's be honest, he's got that style that turns heads," laughed Ava, twirling a lock of her thick, curly hair with a mischievous grin. The cafe's warm light reflected off her skin, radiating confidence. The vibrancy of late-night conversations mixed with the clinking of cups, heightening the atmosphere, intimate yet electric. "Jealousy isn't just a feeling, darling. It's a weapon," said Jace, leaning back with a nonchalant tilt of his chair, a knowing look in his eye. The scent of vanilla from his cappuccino contrasted sharply with the principal topic of their conversation. "But wield it wisely, Chloe. You don't want to end up like a cliché." Chloe looked at him, searching for sincerity. "Clichés can work if you twist them just right," she shot back, her voice playful yet tinged with a simmering tension that lay just beneath the surface. In that moment, she felt the solidity of purpose filling the seat beside her. "I mean, I don't trust Othello," Jace continued, his expression growing serious. "Not when he has a history of moving in the shadows. We need to be strategic." Ava nodded vigorously, her eyes sparkling with ambition. "I've heard whispers about him, Chloe. There are layers to his charm that might hide darker secrets." She leaned in, her tone conspiratorial. "Maybe we can pry open those layers." The silence that followed was thick, even as laughter echoed from a group of young couples nearby, their undeniable joy providing a stark contrast to the heaviness weighing on Chloe's heart. She could feel the duality of her emotions, the pulse of jealousy intertwined with an undeniable longing. "Are you really that desperate?" Jace's voice, laced with curiosity, sliced through her reverie. His tone was a mix of mockery and sincerity. Lifting her chin slightly, she shot him a sharp glare. "Excuse me? Desperate? No, more like determined. There's a difference." Ava's laughter cut through the tension. "We're all in when it comes to Othello, right? I mean, you can't deny that the guy is captivating, double-edged sword or not." She lowered her voice, looking around as though the mere mention of his name would conjure him. "Are you ready to risk everything for him?" Chloe bit her lip. What if she was? I, I've missed something with him. There's been a connection I thought was buried. Maybe it's not too late." In that moment, a large group of patrons entered, laughter spilling into the night and breaking the moment of intensity. Jace, momentarily distracted, leaned against the wall, watching the newcomers with an assessing gaze. "That's the spirit," he said when he turned back to Chloe, his typical bravado melting as he regarded her with something more genuine. "But it won't be easy. You have to navigate both desire and darkness." "Trust me," Chloe replied, scanning the faces around her. "I'm used to navigating." Her heart flickered with determination, an ember igniting warmth behind her words. The challenge of winning over Othello felt less like an act of desperation and more like a daring adventure scoffing at the notion of failure. Just as she was gathering the courage to voice her thoughts, Ava interjected, waving her hands dramatically. "Look, we've got to act fast." Her eyes gleamed with mischief. If you really want him, you can't just sit around. You need to show him what he's missing. Agreed, Jace grinned, resuming his confident posture. How about we plan a little distraction for him? Light a fire without the ashes. Chloe considered this, the warmth of thought brightening her features. So, a little distraction, huh? She mused, her mind already spinning possibilities. She glanced at her friends, excitement prickling at the back of her neck. Let's see just how hot things can get. I'm in, she declared, her heart racing with newfound purpose. As they laughed, plotting wildly, the cafe felt warmer and brighter, wrapped in the possibilities of betrayal and redemption. Chloe knew the path wouldn't be clear, but the thrill of the chase enveloped her like a second skin, raw and electric. Suddenly, a face flashed across her mind. I still need him to look at me, not just see me, she murmured. Jace winked. Then we'll make him see more than he bargained for. Against the chatter of the cafe, the spirit of their friendship flourished, fierce and unwavering, constructing a battleground over love intertwined with jealousy, each bond tighter than the last. Scene 13, Power Dynamics Shift. The faint clinking of crystal glasses resonated softly against the deep mahogany of the dining table, remnants of a lavish dinner laid out in the dimly lit room. Scented candles flickered, casting playful shadows against the ornate wallpaper, while the unmistakable aroma of rich truffle oil lingered in the air. Othello Huxley stood by the window, his broad frame silhouetted against the vibrant backdrop of the night sky, contemplating something much darker than the meal that had just unfolded. Chloe Carver adjusted her scarf, feeling the soft cashmere brush against her neck as she approached him. She paused, her heart fluttering, an inexplicable mix of apprehension and anticipation. The space between them seemed charged, thrumming with a tension that made the atmosphere shiver. With each step, she tried to subdue the swell of feelings that rose within her chest. Do you miss it? She asked, her voice steady, though every syllable crackled with unspoken words. That rush, the power of it all? Othello turned slowly, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. You think power is something to miss, Chloe? His brow furrowed with mock incredulity, and yet the slightest smirk played on his lips, inviting her to step deeper into this uncharted territory. It's a burden, or an opportunity, she countered, holding his gaze. His confidence was a fortress, but in that moment she felt the weight shift, even if just a hair. He was always the strong one, the one who took charge, but now the pulse of recognition throbbed between them, a revelation neither fully understood. Othello's jaw clenched as he stepped closer. A hint of vulnerability flickered in his dark eyes, almost overshadowed by the bravado he usually exuded. You hardly quoted Sun Tzu just for small talk. Chloe smiled, remembering their late-night debates over dim sum and strategy. I've learned from the best. But she was no longer the student. She could sense that the ground was shifting beneath them. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, the height of his self-assuredness slowly unraveling. And what exactly did you learn, Chloe? The challenge lingered in the air, thick and heady. Taking a breath, she stepped forward, a deliberate movement that made Othello straighten, his demeanor morphing from intrigued to guarded. I learned that sometimes showing your hand might just be the winning play, she replied, a spark igniting in her chest. Their eyes locked, and the air grew thick with electric tension. Chloe felt a surprising swell of power in that exchanged glance, reminiscent of the chess games they had played, where each pawn was a step toward uncertainty. She could see him recalibrating, shifting his perception of her from merely tentative to undeniably fierce. Maybe you want to try your hand at that sometimes, Othello. There's room for finesse, too. The words slipped out, bold yet tender, laden with an intimacy that surprised even her. He chuckled softly, shaking his head as if trying to dispel the heat rising between them. Such optimism, Chloe. But do you truly believe you can change the game, especially with me? I've spent far too long giving in to fear. She took another step closer, closing the distance until the scent of his cologne enveloped her. It was musky, warm, an intoxicating blend that shook her focus like a sip of fine wine. The question now is, what are you afraid of? For a fleeting instant, vulnerability flickered in Othello's eyes before he masked it with a confident smile. It was as if the walls he'd built were slowly cracking beneath the weight of their charged exchange. I fear living in a world where your determination could overshadow mine, Chloe. What you fear is the truth, she replied, emboldened by her own words. That maybe I'm not as easily dismissed as you thought. The silence that followed was pregnant with potential. Othello's breath hitched, and for a heartbeat, time ceased. He hesitated, and in that pause, there lay the unmistakable promise of something more. The rhythm of their heartbeats matched the growing intensity of the moment. Tentatively, Othello reached for her, his fingertips grazing her arm, a whisper of contact that sent shivers cascading through her. And what if I believed you? Their lips brushed fleetingly, a mere caress echoing the swirling emotions of years spent in conflict, remorse, and unspoken desires. It was uncharted territory for both of them. Chloe could feel the world melt away, the burdens of the past dissolving into a fog of possibility. I guess you'll have to find out, she murmured, pulling away slightly, leaving him yearning. A soft smile danced on her lips as she turned, taking a step back, overwhelmed but undeterred. Othello's eyes burned with unspoken need, but Chloe felt vindicated, her newfound power shifting the dynamics between them. In that charged moment, she knew they were no longer just unwilling players in a game. They were contenders, ready to rewrite the rules. Scene 14, an honest devastation. The narrow, slightly dim corridor of the old warehouse creaked under the weight of silence, punctuated only by the occasional distant clank of metal. The faint flicker of a single hanging light bulb cast quivering shadows across the peeling walls, illuminating a small table cluttered with remnants of a hastily abandoned squad lunch plastic wrappers, crumpled cans of soda, and a half-eaten slice of pizza that had somehow seen better days. Chloe Carver stood at the head of the table, her fingers tracing the edges of a napkin, as if seeking some semblance of comfort in its rough texture. Her heart raced, the chaos of the outside world fading momentarily as she focused on Othello Huxley, who leaned against the wall, arms crossed, an unreadable expression cloaking his face. "Do you want to talk about it?" Chloe finally asked, her voice steady despite her racing thoughts. Yet behind her facade of composure, emotions swirled, a storm of betrayal, nostalgia, and the ever-daunting presence of Othello. "About what?" Othello replied, his tone clipped, friction sparking between them. "About how everything we believed is a lie. Or perhaps about how it took years to build something you're trying to tear down with a single act." Chloe shot back, her eyes narrowing fiercely. The air grew thick, each heartbeat reverberating in the too small space. Chloe couldn't decide whether to feel anger or concern for Othello's retreat into silence. The man exuded confidence, but now an uncharacteristic vulnerability shadowed him, a stark contrast to the steadfast exterior he wore like armor. "Maybe we should focus on what's actually happening out there," he said, nodding toward the doors that separated them from the chaos beyond, a world they'd both tried to escape. Before she could respond, a deafening crash echoed somewhere in the depths of the warehouse, causing them both to jump as the tension in the air suddenly snapped. "What was that?" Chloe asked sharply, her eyes darting to the door. "Does it matter? We're trapped anyway," Othello muttered, though his voice was laced with a tension that spoke volumes. The frustration surged through him like electricity. "But you're just going to." "I'm going to keep us alive, Chloe," his voice cut through hers. "That's all that matters right now." He thrust a hand through his hair, the gesture exposing the rawness beneath his carefully built facade. Chloe stepped back, surprised by the intensity of his outburst. "You could have stopped this from happening," she said, unable to mask the accusation in her tone. "I didn't know. How could I have known?" Othello shouted, his voice echoing in the small space. As quickly as the anger flared, it deflated, leaving behind a hollow silence. "You think I don't carry the weight of every choice I've made? That I don't think about you, about your family?" The unspoken words floated between them, heavy with unshed tears and buried regrets. Chloe saw the spark of sincerity in his eyes, ignited by the very truth she had tried to bury. "What do you mean?" she whispered, daring hope to whisper back. "What happened 10 years ago? It haunts me. I thought I was protecting you, but—" His voice trailed off, raw with uncertainty. "Protecting me? By?" Her pulse quickened, processing the revelation, the vulnerability that emerged in this unlikely moment, allowing her a glimpse into the man who had always seemed untouchable. By ensuring your path would be better, even if it cost me yours, Othello finished, voice thick with emotion. I don't need you to decide what's best for me. Her voice rang out, a mixture of fury and thrill coursing through her veins. Silence rebounded between them, a taut wire straining under the weight of all left unsaid, and for a moment they simply regarded each other, both fearful and yearning, a magnetic pull that threatened to bridge the gap of misunderstanding. So what now? Chloe finally asked, her voice a whisper, yet it sliced through the ever-thickening tension. Do we just throw all this away? Maybe we need to fight for what's left, Othello replied, the realization dawning upon him as he stepped closer, closing the space between them with a tender determination. In an instant, the air shifted, crackling with unspoken promises and shared burdens. Their breaths mingled, two souls carved from the same fire, ready to reconcile the past to seize the future. Together? She asked, the word laced with anticipation. Always, he responded, and at that moment, all the chaos outside felt trivial compared to the unyielding connection that had just ignited between them. Somewhere down the hall, the commotion continued, but for Chloe and Othello, all that mattered was the crossroads laid out before them, a fragile world waiting to be rebuilt. Scene 15, Manipulation and Mistakes. The sun hung low in the sky, a deep orange hue pooling across the rooftops of Westbrook. The air was heavy but fragrant, infused with the scent of freshly bloomed magnolias that melded with the distant sound of laughter echoing from nearby gardens. It was a picturesque afternoon, yet beneath the beauty, tension simmered in every corner of the Huxley estate. Chloe Carver stood at the sliding glass door of the terrace, her fingers tracing the delicate patterns etched into the smooth, gilded frame. The vibrant colors that surrounded her felt like a cruel contrast to her tempestuous mind. She had orchestrated everything with meticulous care to ensure that this afternoon would reclaim her agency, would force everyone, including Othello, to acknowledge her strength. But in the back of her mind, doubt festered like a slow-burning ember. "Chloe," Othello called from within, his voice resonant and warm, stirring a blend of yearning and rage within her. "If you're not coming out, I might just take the last slice of that incredible lemon tart." Her fingers froze. He knew she'd been dreaming of that tart for days. With a subtle shake of her head, she stepped outside, the sun casting golden light around her like a fleeting halo. Othello was leaning against the weathered railing, the dappled sunlight creating a play of shadows across his handsome features. The warm glow made him appear almost ethereal, but Chloe refused to let his charm distract her. "Do you think I'd let you have it so easily?" she laughed, forcing a levity into her voice that didn't quite meet her gaze. "Easily? That's rich coming from the queen of strategic manipulation," he teased, eyes sparkling with mischief. "I'd risk my life for that tart." Chloe grinned, but it was strained. The laugh echoed hollow, weighed down by all that lay unsaid between them, a smoldering resentment combined with the undeniable spark of their history. "Strategic is better than impulsive," she countered, stepping closer. The warmth radiating from his body was intoxicating, and for a moment, she let herself consider the comfort it could bring. "You've built your empire on careful moves. Why should this be any different?" "Careful moves or not, I can still get caught in the crossfire," Othello replied, a hint of seriousness washing over his playfulness. "We both know that well." His eyes held hers, searching, and for a fleeting second, the air crackled between them, electric with unspoken words. A gust of wind swept through the garden, rustling leaves and pushing Chloe's curls away from her face. She shivered slightly, not from the coolness, but from the intensity in his gaze conveying matters deeper than their casual banter. "Being careful has its dangers," Chloe murmured, moving even closer. The space between them felt charged, a palpable tension that summoned the thrill of secrets. What if? What if being cautious is the very reason I don't have a say in my own life?" Othello leaned closer, tilting his head with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "You have a say, Chloe. You've always had it. Then why does it feel like you're the only one in control?" The vulnerability slipped into her tone, a slip she masked with fervor. The secret was as compelling as it was dangerous. "Why can't you see that I'm ready to rise?" "Because I know you," he challenged, stepping into her bubble. They were mere inches apart, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body like a flame coaxing her toward it. You're so busy trying to prove something, you're forgetting who you are. Maybe I'm just trying to keep from losing myself, she shot back, the words tasting bitter. Chloe shifted away, trying to grapple with the whirlpool of feelings sinking inside her. If I just... Suddenly, a crash interrupted the moment. Laughter halted. Numerous guests rushed to the terrace entrance, their joyful shouts turning into excitement as they spilled into the space. Chloe's heart sank. Spontaneity erupted, disrupting the intimate atmosphere. Othello's expression shifted, recognition dawning. Chloe, just hold that thought, she whispered hastily, forcing a playful grin before she gently nudged him back. We're about to be popular. Before he could respond, she turned to the crowd now pouring onto the terrace, the tension between them replaced by the commotion. Yet, as she engaged in the playful banter surrounding her, a shadow loomed over her heart. Her attempt at manipulation might just lead to a betrayal she wasn't prepared to face. With each laugh shared, a delicate string strained, pulling taut between them, waiting for the moment it might snap. And all she could think was, what have I done? Scene 16, facing unexpected danger. Chloe Carver stood in the dim-lit kitchen, a space that smelled of oil and roasted garlic, remnants of the dinner they never got to enjoy. She meticulously chopped vegetables, each slice of the knife steady, almost meditative until now. The rhythmic thud of the blade quickly turned frantic as thoughts invaded her focus. Memories of Othello's touch lingered like an echo, stirring both longing and resentment. Are you always going to solve every problem by chopping vegetables? Othello Huxley teased from behind her, his voice a low rumble that electrified the air. Chloe glanced over her shoulder, her jaw tightening involuntarily. I could just let the carrot rot, but that wouldn't be very helpful, would it? The corners of his mouth curved into a smirk. There was something magnetic about the way he leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, confident, yet perhaps a touch vulnerable. The scruff on his jaw caught the last glimmers of fading light, and for a brief moment she found herself lost in the depths of his intent gaze. I thought you preferred to tackle things head-on, he countered, stepping closer. The distance between them felt like a fraying thread, the tension wound so tightly it almost hurt. Maybe I'm just trying to keep busy so I don't think about. A sudden shattering explosion interrupted her, a jarring interruption that sent them both jumping. Glass showered the kitchen as a flurry of chaos erupted outside. The sounds of shouting and engines revving filled the air. Chloe's heart raced as she dropped the knife, the blade clattering against the tiled floor. What was that? She whispered, panic flourishing in her voice. Stay here, Othello ordered, moving swiftly to the window, peering through the panes as if the world outside was about to end. Chloe wanted to argue, but the instinct to comply overshadowed her resentment, a testament to the peculiar bond forming between them amid the chaos. We need to go now, he declared, turning back to her, eyes darting with urgency. As he reached for her arm, she pulled back, fear igniting within her. What if it's a mistake? What if they see us? Chloe, he said, voice low, staying here means we're the targets. We're safer moving together. She took a breath, her mind racing, a truce born from threat. Fine, but I'm not going out like some cliché victim in a horror movie. Othello's chuckle broke the tension momentarily, warming the chilled air. You're much more than a cliché. Let's go. They slipped into the shadows of the hallway, each breath heavy with determination, an awareness of how their very lives hinged upon silent cooperation. Outside, as they navigated through the chaos, shouts escalated and cars screeched in agony. The world outside melted into blurred movements, leaving them enveloped in their shared mission. We stick together. No stray shots, Othello instructed, his voice firm, the underpinning of urgency igniting resolve within Chloe. The street lay before them like a battleground chaos flickering like a flame. Chloe held her breath, adrenaline urging her forward as they slipped from the side of the building into a narrow alley. There, shadows danced, but with Othello by her side, she felt fortified. In the alley's embrace, Othello turned to her, his intense gaze grounding. You're not scared of heights, are you? What are you suggesting? She shot back, a spark igniting as a fleeting smile graced her lips. Climb. He gestured to a fire escape above them. No one will see us from up there. As panic and exhilaration mingled, Chloe's heart drummed harder, not just from fear, but at the possibility of trust. With a glance that screamed unspoken words, she nodded, accepting the challenge. They worked in synchrony, both scaling the rungs, breathless moments weaving them closer together. At the top, the city sprawled beneath them, chaos unfolding like a disturbed ant hill. Othello stepped close, catching her breath as he stood behind her, hands poised protectively on the railing. The electric energy between them crackled in the expansive night. "This is madness," she breathed, feeling the heat radiate off him as he leaned in, foreheads nearly brushing. No one could interrupt this moment, suspended between love and vengeance. "Madness is sometimes required for survival," he replied softly, his breath fanning her ear in a way that sent an unexpected thrill through her. "Trust me now." "I want to, but—" The weight of their past hung like a storm cloud above them. "Then let's make a choice for us," he whispered, vulnerability clawing at them both, the tension ripe for unraveling. The world swirled around them, and in that very instant, the flicker of danger became a spark of potential, igniting passions they'd buried far too deep. Scene 17, uncovering the plot. The air inside the dimly lit cafe hung heavy with the humid scent of roasted coffee and the greasy aroma of frying donuts. Chloe Carver sat at a small table by the window, her fingers nervously drumming against a chipped ceramic mug. Raindrops pattered rhythmically against the glass, echoing the storm brewing within her. She watched the streets glisten, each glimmer a reminder of the secrets lurking just beyond the fogged-up panes. It was early evening, shadows creeping into the world outside, entwining with her thoughts as she waited for Othello Huxley to arrive. When he stepped in, a shock of fresh air followed him. The door swung closed behind him, trapping the wildness of the storm outside. Othello's presence filled the space, tall, broad-shouldered, exuding an undeniable charisma even amidst the chaos. His dark eyes scanned the cafe until they rested on her, and in that moment, the storm within her subsided. "Chloe," he said, sliding into the seat opposite her. He exuded calm, a stark contrast to her turmoil. "You look like I've been awake since yesterday?" she interrupted, a smile playing on her lips that didn't quite reach her eyes. "What took you so long?" "Probably the torrential downpour. I had a hard time navigating my way through the flood," he replied, his tone light, yet carrying an undercurrent of seriousness that made her belly flutter and twist. She gestured toward the window. "Do you see those clouds? They look like smoke signals." "Something isn't right, Othello. I've been digging into the business records." "Chloe," he cut in, leaning closer, his voice a whisper. "Maybe we should drop this for now. You don't know what you're involving yourself in." "Exactly." Chloe leaned forward, her voice tinged with urgency. "And that's why I have to know. I can't just sit back and—" But before she could finish, the door burst open. A gust of wind followed two figures, Marcus and Nia, both soaked to the skin, eyes wide and frantic. "Get out!" Marcus shouted, glancing around as if the walls themselves might listen. "They're coming for you, Othello." Chloe's heart dropped. "Dorian," Nia gasped, her breath coming in ragged bursts. "He's determined to take you out, Othello. He believes you're a threat." Othello shot them a sharp look. "And you think running is the answer? Right now, it's the only chance we have," Marcus insisted. "They've been watching you for weeks." Othello weighed their words, the unfathomable depth of his gaze slipping momentarily into uncertainty. "What do you mean, watching?" "Surveillance bad news, Othello," Nia replied, tightening her towel around her shoulders. "They know too much about us, about you." Suddenly, the light flickered, casting erratic shadows on their faces. The tension in the cafe drew taut. Even the barista, usually indifferent, seemed glued to the commotion like a spectator at a grand theater. "What do they want?" Chloe's voice echoed amidst hushed urgency. "Control," Marcus declared, a bitter glint in his eye. "And they believe you're their way to it, Othello." A snarl of anger creased Othello's brow. Chloe's heart raced. She could feel the electricity crackling between them, a mix of fear and an unspoken bond. But buried beneath it lay the jagged edges of their history, reminders of betrayal that clawed at her mind. "So what's the plan?" Othello snapped, turning back to them. His authoritative tone brimmed with heavy resolve. "We can't let them take what is ours." "By ours, do you mean you?" Chloe shot back sharply, her jealousy igniting the wound she thought had healed. Or did you forget it was my family's legacy that crumbled because of you? The cafe went silent, each breath heavy with implications. Othello's dark eyes glimmered with something akin to fury and desperation. Believe me, Chloe, you're not the only one with battles to fight. I've fought through nightmares just to stand here. Chloe swallowed hard, the heat of the argument dissipating as quick as lightning, shattered glass amid a storm. Then let's fight together, she challenged softly, her voice trembling yet resolute, mirroring his resolve. Naya chimed in. If we're going to do this, we need to move. Chloe felt the weight of Othello's stare, as if he could sense the swell of complicated emotions within her. We won't lose. Not again, he asserted, confidence flooding his voice. He reached out, touching her hand gently, grounding her chaos with the connection that was deeper than their tumultuous history. But this is dangerous, Marcus warned, the storm outside raging louder, drowning his fear. Anything less is surrender. Othello's voice held them all captive, a determined whisper brewing amidst the rolling thunder. In that tense moment, an invisible bond began weaving between them, one paved with heartache, yet infused with resilience. They would rise together against the gathering storm, hearts twined and braced for whatever darkness lay ahead. Scene 18. Standoff of emotions. Chloe's voice sliced through the tension that blanketed the small room. What exactly do you think you're doing? Her brow knitted, a blend of defiance and fear flickering in her eyes. She stood near the far wall, arms crossed tight across her chest, nails digging into the flesh of her arms. Othello stood centrally, his posture unyielding, a shield of resolve erected against the chaos outside. We need to negotiate, Chloe. Panicking isn't an option right now. His gaze was fixed on the door, but she could feel the heat of his awareness lingering on her. Negotiate? She scoffed, the corner of her mouth twitching with disbelief. That's what you think? These people are criminals, not business partners. The air in the room was thick with more than just danger. It hummed with the weight of unspoken words between them, each heartbeat drumming louder in the silence that swallowed the space. Then what would you have me do? Othello's temper flared, a flicker of desperation shining through his otherwise confident demeanor. We're trapped, Chloe. I'm trying to keep us safe. He stepped closer, the distance between them diminishing, a tightrope of unsaid emotions stretched taut. I don't need saving, she shot back, her heart racing despite her bravado, especially not from you. But the momentary victory of her words wobbled under the intensity of his stare, a mix of frustration and something deeper, something they had both buried for too long. Outside, the faint echoes of voices and muffled commands from the kidnappers escalated, each shout a reminder of their precarious situation. The room vibrated with energy, igniting first the air and then the space between them. You think I don't know how you feel? Othello voiced closer, each syllable laced with urgency as he reached for her, his hand brushing against hers like a whisper, making her breath hitch. Chloe pulled back, a defensive reflex, yet the spark lingered like static electricity in the air. How can you even say that when you were the cause of my family's downfall? The bitterness in her voice crackled in the charged atmosphere. His jaw clenched, the flicker of regret crossing his face. You think I don't regret that? I was reckless. But that's not why we're here, Chloe. The room seemed to narrow, her focus locked onto his dark, soulful eyes, where vulnerability and sincerity waged silent wars. Then why are we here? She countered, tilting her head, defiance aligned with a glimmer of something else as her voice lowered, softening yet dangerous, like a blade concealed in velvet. I'll protect you, he said, a commitment laced with every ounce of conviction he could muster. Her breath caught, the words igniting something deep within her. You think that matters? The challenge in her tone wrapped around them like a steel band, constricting. She could hear her heart drumming, a chaotic rhythm that echoed the tumult of feelings inside her. Yet as Othello moved closer, she felt her composure slip. Chloe, he breathed, with a gravity that reached down and pulled her toward him. What do you want from me, Othello? She murmured, her voice almost a resignation, her guard lowering ever so slightly as the tension became palpable, a tight coil waiting to snap. He hesitated, his eyes searching hers, whispering secrets they had both long buried, vulnerability exposed. I want to understand Us. And in a heartbeat, the air shifted. A storm of emotions surged, as if the world outside had crumbled to nothing, leaving only them in the eye of their perfect chaos. Suddenly, his hand found her chin, tilting it up, their faces inches apart, breaths mingling in heated urgency. "Trust me," he murmured. The world faded, and it felt as if time suspended. Each heartbeat echoed the uncharted territory they had yet to explore. And then, as if the floodgates had finally burst, he drew closer, and their lips met, tentative at first, a merging of fear and desire, a cauldron of unacknowledged longing. The kiss deepened, warmth flooding their senses, eclipsing the shadows that had loomed over them for years. Outside, the chaos continued unabated, but within their brief moment, the world narrowed to the promise of what could be, vibrant and electric. A promise tangled in fate, the kiss faded, and they stood breathless, the silence echoing louder than before. Chloe pulled back slowly, her pulse quickening. "What now?" Othello's eyes were fierce, guarding secrets and dreams as he whispered, "Now we fight." Scene 19. Romantic breakthrough. Amid a gentle drizzle that painted the world outside the tall windows of Chloe's office, the papers strewn across her desk seemed to mimic the turmoil in her heart. Each document held the weight of her family's aspirations, dreams teetering from hope to despair, just as her feelings for Othello teetered on the brink of betrayal and longing. The rhythmic patter of raindrops echoed through the silence, creating an intimate cocoon of sound that wrapped around her as she wrestled with the storm brewing within. Othello leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his gaze fixed on her. The contrast between their positions was sharp. She, ensconced in her chaotic world, and he, the embodiment of calm defiance. There was a flicker of vulnerability behind his confident facade, a tension that shimmered in the air like a thunderstorm promising to break loose. "You think those things will fix anything?" he said, voice low and gravelly, breaking the silence like a sudden flash of lightning. "Paper won't change the fact that you're letting your past control you." Chloe whipped around, the movement stirring the scattered papers into the air as if the universe sought to bolster their argument. "You don't understand, Othello. You've never had to live with the ruins of someone else's ambition." Her breath quickened, feeling the humid air thicken around them. He stepped closer, the scent of musky cologne mingling with the raindrops' freshness. "And you think burying yourself in work will change what happened a decade ago? Do you even know what it's like, being responsible for ruining someone's life?" The remark struck her, igniting the deep-seated resentment she had buried beneath layers of anger and unacknowledged affection. "It's rich coming from you of all people. You think we just forgot? You took everything from us." "Chloe," he interjected, his voice rising like the swell of the tide, fierce and commanding. "Do you think I wanted that? It was a mistake, one that haunts me every single day." The rain intensified, a torrent that mirrored their rising emotions. Thunder rumbled softly in the distance, as if the heavens dared to intervene. Their faces were inches apart now, the electricity between them palpable. Chloe could see the faint sheen of sweat glistening on his brow, the way his jaw tightened with restrained frustration. She fought the urge to reach out and touch him. The very thought felt like treachery and temptation intertwined. "Haunted? That's your excuse?" she replied, bitterness curling her words. "The scars you inflicted on my family? You think a little guilt can patch that up?" Othello's expression softened, and in that moment the world outside faded, leaving only the two of them. "No, it can't. But it can lead to something better, if you let it. I've changed, Chloe. I'm not that man anymore." In her heart, a flicker of hope instigated an internal rebellion. She wanted to argue, to push him away, but there was an undeniable pull, a gravity drawing her closer. Beneath the layers of hurt and anger lay the astonishment of shared history, unspoken desire, and the knowledge that maybe, just maybe, they could redefine their past. "Is that what you're hoping for? That I'll just forgive you and forget?" she challenged, fighting to keep her voice steady, despite the tremor in her heart. His dark eyes bore into hers, alive with emotion. "Not forget, but to understand. What if we stopped letting our history dictate us? What if we faced it together?" The silence stretched, thick and heavy like the rain-soaked air around them, and the chill of doubt finally began to thaw. The tension crackled between them like fireworks on the 4th of July. each tiny spark igniting a rush of longing. Chloe could feel the impending shift, a moment suspended in time where love and hatred, longing and resentment blended into an intoxicating potion. As Chloe opened her mouth to respond, the floodgates of vulnerability suddenly gave way. I, I don't know if I can face you again. With an instinctive motion, Othello closed the space between them, his fingertips brushing her arm, igniting a warmth that spread from her skin to her very core. You can, and I'll be right here, waiting, no matter what. In that heartbeat, the echoes of their past started to merge with possibility, leaving her both terrified and exhilarated. She searched his gaze, desperately wanting to seize this fragile chance. Othello, she breathed, the name hanging in the air between them, filled with promise. And then, as the skies roared and the rain poured down, their lips met in a soft collision, a tentative dance that was at once an apology and a plea, a perfect harmony of chaos and redemption, the gentle spilling of all that had been held back for far too long. Scene 20. The decision on love. The air inside the dimly lit warehouse was thick with tension, a stark contrast to the raging storm outside. Rain pounded against the tin roof like an unyielding drummer, providing a frenetic backdrop to the frantic voices echoing against the cold metal walls. Chloe Carver, her dark curls clinging to her damp forehead, threw her hands into the air, exasperated. Are you really going to stand there and pretend this isn't your fault? Othello, she shouted, her voice raw with betrayal. Othello Huxley, tousled hair framing his chiseled features, clenched his jaw, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. And I suppose you think you have the moral high ground? You're not the one with my blood on your hands, he fired back, his tone sharper than the edge of the knife that had been used as a threat just moments before. No, but I am the one holding the shattered pieces of my family's dreams, thanks to you. Chloe snapped, the hurt spilling out of her, each word dripping with the rage she had bottled up for over a decade. Do you think this hostage situation changes anything? Do you expect me to just forgive and forget? Othello stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking, the air charged with a mix of anger and undeniable chemistry. You don't understand, Chloe. His voice softened, and for a brief moment, vulnerability flickered in his dark eyes like a candle fighting against the wind. I never wanted this to happen. Not to you, not to your family. She blinked, confusion mixing with the intensity of the moment. Then explain yourself. What do you want from me? Her heart raced, caught between the bitterness of betrayal and the longing she had hidden beneath layers of resentment. Othello took another step closer, lowering his voice. I want you to know that I've changed. I'm not the man you think I am anymore. His voice, usually so confident and assertive, cracked slightly, revealing the depth of his regret. I spent years trying to prove I'm worthy of redemption, trying to make up for the past, but maybe I'm the one who's unworthy of your forgiveness. Chloe's breath caught in her throat. For a heartbeat, she considered the weight of his words. Outside, the thunder roared, but inside, the storm was brewing within her. Her own emotions warred bitterness against the deep-seated feelings that stirred against her will. Before she could respond, a loud crash erupted nearby, startling them both. It was followed by the chaotic murmur of their fellow captives, the cacophony reminding them of the drama unfolding all around them. But Chloe's world narrowed down to the man before her. Look, I don't know what's going to happen next, she said, her voice softer now, yet still laced with anger. If we get out of this alive, I have to know if you're still the same man who ruined everything. Othello reached out, almost hesitantly, his fingers brushing against her arm. The touch sent shockwaves of warmth through her, a stark contrast to the chilling fear that hovered in her chest. I can't change the past, but let me show you who I am now. I want to fight for us, Chloe. But how can I trust you? Because we're both trapped, he managed, his breathing heavy, his intensity palpable. And sometimes it takes something overwhelming to shake us into understanding what we truly want. Chloe felt her heart racing. The conflict swirled within her. Her mind screamed caution, while her instinct urged her to lean in. The distance between them evaporated as they stood on the precipice of wanting and needing, each a reflection of the other's desires. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Several captors were making their way closer, and with it, the immediacy of the threat bloomed anew. "Chloe," Othello murmured, voice dipping low, "what do we do?" Her answer wasn't verbal. It was a look that could shatter walls. The storm outside raged on, but within that fraught moment, she finally understood love was worth fighting for, even in the face of betrayal. She nodded slowly, her decision forming, and whispered, "Together." A gunshot rang out, echoing through the rain-soaked night, letting the two know that decisions made in the heat of the moment had consequences they could not yet foresee. Scene 21. Aftermath of betrayal. The air was thick with the muggy remnants of the earlier storm, the scent of damp earth mingling with the faint whiff of burnt rubber lingering from the standoff. Chloe Carver stood at the kitchen counter of her family's small yet warm brownstone. She absent-mindedly stroked a leaf from a potted fern, its vivid green contrasting against the wooden shutters painted azure. A clatter echoed behind her as Othello Huxley strode in, his presence an electric jolt, full of unspoken tension. "Shouldn't we talk about what just happened?" Othello's voice was steady, yet carried an edge like a taut bowstring. Chloe didn't turn to meet his eyes. Instead, she focused on the blades of the fern, brushing her fingers over them, pondering whether it would flourish without enough sunlight. "What's there to discuss?" she replied, feigning casualness, though her heart raced beneath her ribcage. "It's all in the past now." "Is it? You manipulated everything, this situation," he pressed, his gaze piercing through the back of her head.